All right, let's talk about that feeling. You know the one. You've been scrolling for hours, and then you land on a website and you just breathe. You feel calmer, more focused, like a little bit of quiet in all the digital noise. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden science behind that exact feeling.
I mean, it's a real thing, right? You're clicking through a maze of pop-ups and harsh designs, your brain is just frazzled, and then suddenly, you land somewhere that just feels good. It feels different. And I promise you, it's not magic. It is a very powerful, very real psychological principle at work.
And this right here, this is the core of it. We are living in this weird paradox, you know? We spend nearly our entire lives glued to screens, but deep down, we have this ancient, primal craving for the natural world. So the big question is, how does that deep-seated need, that connection, show up when our whole world is just pixels on a screen?
Okay, so let's get into it. The answer to this whole mystery, it has a name. And it's a concept that, once you understand it, explains so much about what we're drawn to both online and, in the real world. And here it is, the big word, biophilia. It was coined by the legendary biologist E.O. Wilson, and it's this idea that our connection to nature isn't just a preference, it's an innate biological need. It is literally coded into our DNA. We don't just like nature, we are hardwired to need it.
And this quote just nails why. Think about it. For our ancient ancestors, nature wasn't just a nice view. It was a constant stream of critical information. The rustle of leaves could mean a predator or prey. The flow of water meant life. Understanding these patterns was the difference between survival and, well, not surviving. That instinct is still in us, running in the background, shaping what we find beautiful and calming.
So, okay, if we're hardwired to connect with nature, what's actually happening inside our heads when we see it, even if it's just on a screen? Let's break down the actual psychology behind this feeling of calm.
So check this out. It's a concept called attention restoration theory. We all have this mental fuel tank for what's called directed attention. It's what you use to focus on a spreadsheet or navigate a really complicated website, and it drains you fast. But nature offers something different. It offers fascination. It's an effortless kind of attention, like watching clouds or a fire, that actually lets our mental batteries recharge. So a website using natural elements can literally give your brain a tiny break, reducing that fatigue.
And then there's this, which is so cool. It's called fractal fluency. Think about the patterns in a snowflake, or a fern, or a seashell. They're complex, but they repeat. Well, it turns out our brains evolved to process these natural fractals with incredible ease. And that ease of processing, it feels good. It's why organic, flowing shapes just feel more pleasing, more right than a bunch of harsh, rigid lines. Of course, this all extends to color. The colors of nature aren't just random. They are packed with deep psychological meaning. Blues, the color of the sky, of water, they signal calm and stability. That's why so many banks use blue. Greens are almost universally connected to health, growth, and peace. And earth tones just feel grounding, warm, and authentic. It's not just about what looks pretty, it's about what deep-seated, ancient feeling that color is triggering. This one's a really cool idea that comes from architecture. It's called prospect and refuge theory. So, prospect is about having a clear view ahead, seeing your possibilities. In web design, that's clear navigation. Refuge is about feeling safe and grounded where you are, a well-structured page. A great website gives you both, a safe place to stand and a clear view of where you can go next. Okay, so we've covered a ton of the why. Now let's get down to brass tacks. How do you actually take all this incredible psychological theory and bake it into a real live website?
It really boils down to these three main strategies. First, you have the direct experience of nature. Then you have the indirect experience. And finally, you have the experience of space and place. Let's quickly walk through each one. So principle 1, direct experience. This is the most obvious one. It means using beautiful, high-quality photos and videos of nature. But it's also more subtle than that. It's about using lots of white space to create a feeling of light and air. You want the design to feel like it can breathe.
Next up is the indirect experience, and this is where things get really clever. This is about using natural analogs, so using soft curves instead of sharp 90-degree angles, bringing in subtle textures that feel like wood or stone, and of course using those color palettes we talked about. It's all about mimicking the patterns of nature to make a digital space feel a whole lot less digital.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing, right? But so what? What is the actual tangible payoff for a business or a brand to even care about this stuff? Well, the results are actually pretty surprising, and they're totally measurable.
Look, it's simple. When a digital space feels less stressful and more appealing, people stick around longer. It's just human nature. As you can see, using biophilic design can lead directly to people spending more time on your page, lower bounce rates, meaning fewer people leave immediately, and just more clicks and interactions overall. When a user feels comfortable, they engage.
And it all creates this amazing ripple effect. It starts with your brand being seen as more trustworthy and calm. That leads to a genuinely better user experience, which helps build a real emotional connection. And that connection, well, that's what encourages people to take action. It's a whole ecosystem where everything supports everything else.
So really, when we design in a way that respects our deep human connection to nature, we're not just making things prettier. We're creating a web that's more restorative, more engaging, and frankly, just more human. So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on for your next project. How will you bring a little bit of that timeless, natural world into whatever you create next?